Quiero darle las gracias a Lourdes y Alicia.
Thank Elisa and Lucia to give me the opportunity to share with you what I have been learning in the ECLAC from 2004, and I hope that I can learn from you as well. Okay. What I'm going to share with you, it's something that we learned in the ECLAC thanks to a project with the Kellogg Foundation, and allowed us to identify experiences in social innovation in Latin America and the Caribbean. The big challenge was to define social innovation. In 2004, the concept was not very trendy, so to speak, but we wanted to define it in such a way that we could measure it, so to know exactly what it was. And after many different deep discussions, we found out that the concept of social innovation is pretty simple. It's just new ways of doing things that we've always been able to do in the social area, new ways of administration and finding new tasks. We need to have a cost-benefit relationship, and much better than the traditional models. So we need this profitability or cost-effectiveness needs to be very efficient. It needs to be transferred into a public policy, because that's the only way that it will impact in a large scale. It needs to have an effect over the poverty determinants, not only on the monetary poverty, but rather on all the different determinants of poverty. And we have the concept of making sure that people can really have access to their rights. It needs to have the potential to eliminate exclusions and discriminations that we find all over the region. For ECLAC, and now listening to the director of the innovation area, I think this is the key area. ECLAC thinks that innovation needs to promote and strengthen the participation of the different communities. From Latin American perspective, many countries with new democracies after many years of dictatorships, we are convinced that one way of strengthening the democracy is to strengthen the citizenship feeling, and that's made through participation. I believe that I'm a citizen if I know I can take part and try and change those things that I don't like and I think that I have a right to change. It's not changing everything completely. Part of this innovation means to take different ideas of different areas, adapt them and try to sort of use them in different areas. It needs to be repeatable, and that was something that we sort of tried to do, and that's you need to try to create this creative replication or repeatability. We studied health, youth, generation of income, social responsibility, and social sustainable development. There as well, we thought that the subjects need to be cross-sectional. So we found subjects such as gender equality and environmental sustainability, and these two subjects don't have they need to be part of the whole. They need, as I said, they need to be cross-sectional. Every activity need to be sort of go around these two main central subjects, gender equality and environmental sustainability. And after analyzing hundreds of different companies, we know that the region it's burst now with different new experiences and new modalities in innovation. We are convinced, and every time I have the chance to visit Europe, I like to state it. In Latin America, we have such an explosion of innovation. It's because we never really had these welfare states that you had in Europe. But in Europe, these welfare states are actually receding, and you know much better than myself, economic recession and so on. What I hope is that this negative sort of side of the welfare states make that the local communities and social and civil society find more efficient ways to use and to sort of maintain these welfare states. We all believe that if funds are public, they're nobody's. But that's not the way. We should think that if they are public, they are actually from everybody's. And we found out that that this condition that we try to set to have an impact in the determinants of poverty, exclusion, etc., are actually working, and they come out of the civil society organizations, from the different organizations of the own community, or sometimes of a combination of the two. What we find is that the community in our region is not like the Valencian community. It's have a different meaning. It's an area where different people live, and that's what we call in Latin America community. And what we found is that the communities have the ability to detect what are their own problems. Many times they come up with different ideas, with different solutions, but they lack the technical knowledge in order to implement these different solutions and in order to develop the most efficient solution to their own problem. And there is where they find the support of the different civil society organizations and universities, and that's exactly what helps them to find the right solution. They stem from the response to situations of crisis or extreme poverty, and they do not arise in times where there is relatively sort of calmness. They are developed thanks to the different synergies from the technical knowledge and traditionals, and sometimes even using the traditional knowledge from the peoples. And when we talk about productive projects, I'm inviting you all not to forget this. We only find that the successful models, when they generate the capacity to associate the different phases, raw materials, learning, training, etc., and the marketing areas need to be made in an associative way. So these traditional programs about micro business need to be replaced because they fail, as simple as that. And they tend to have external financial support, and I'm not talking about international support. It's actually external to the NGO, and this is key. As well as the external financer understands the cycle of the finance and do not expect results in the short terms. Otherwise, we cannot complete this trial and error process within 1 or 2 years. We have found that we need at least 5 years to complete this trial and error process in order to consolidate an innovation. So these programs of 1 to 2 years will not be the basis for that innovation. Now, in general, these initiatives do not stem from governments, from the national governments, and what you call here in Spain the regional governments. And it's very simple. It's not that government officials are not sufficiently intelligent. I was myself an official. It's not that I'm not saying that I'm not intelligent enough. What I'm trying to say is that they should actually. I'm not saying that they don't have the ability, the intellectual ability to do it. We were talking about the trial and error process, and this is extremely complex to implement in the public sector. My political capital might be at stake, and no politician wants to do that. But for those who are in the public sectors and are not trying to advance in politics, it's also a problem, because I might end up in jail. I might misuse the funds. I've never taken any money for myself, but I implemented this trial and error process. I failed, then the second time it worked, but in the first one I misused the funds, and so there was literally a misuse of public funds, and I might have ended up in prison. So that's why it's so complex, and no government officials would like to run that risk. The consolidation process, it's lengthy as well, and it tends to be longer than the government terms. They tend to be about 4 years old in terms of mayors of the municipalities and also the councillors, which are intermediate politicians. And it's very difficult to find this consolidation. Every time a new administration comes into government, they change absolutely everything. There is an overhaul in the government, and everything that was made is lost. So that's why it's so hard to innovate in the public sector. In the central government context, it's even harder, because you can't think of innovate with the whole population of the country. You have to try with different smaller groups in order to consolidate later that innovation. We have an example in Brazil, which is the conditional cash transfer program, CCT, that was transferred to the Caribbean area and different Latin American countries later. So a family gets some cash, some money, as long as they take their children to school, or they vaccinate them, or they train for employment. That nowadays is working in the whole region. It started in Brazil and in the Caribbean. It actually started in Brasilia as a very small pilot experiment. When they found out that it was actually working, they then extended it to the different countries of Latin America. We have also found that there are two main channels that the local, regional, and national administrations can start innovation. One of them is to follow up and support the different innovative processes in the civil society organizations and the communities. They need to follow up and support them. Once these innovative projects are consolidated, then the administration can actually use them as public policies at a local, regional and national level. In Latin America, we have lots of excellent examples in that sense. I'll give you one of them, which is the student accommodation in families in Bolivia. There was an NGO working with the quality of rural education in Bolivia, realized that we need to work with the quality of education, but there were some very serious problems for children in rural areas to education in Bolivia, and basically because these children had to walk for long hours from their own home to the place where the sort of educational institution was placed. And after the second elementary year, the problem was bigger. And some of these children had to walk 2 to 3 hours with very difficult weather conditions as well. So schooling, especially of girls, was also difficult because their parents were very scared of what might happen to them on the way to school.
So this NGO studied alternatives. We saw that the boarding schools were very expensive. They needed some infrastructure, the staff, and so on. But we also wanted to be profitable, and in order to be so, they needed to cover really big areas, large areas. So sometimes they had to stay with other families for a few months. They realized that there is a tradition in all Latin American and Caribbean indigenous peoples, which is called Otawawa. The children who want to study stay at the house of somebody in the village, somebody who the family knows. In exchange of that, as everybody's poor there, the child pays for his stay, working at home, the girls, and the boys working in the fields. Obviously, we couldn't promote something that promoted child work, so we just looked for resources in order to pay the host family, the mother. This was done in Yanacachi, a municipality close to La Paz. The municipality started investing resources from the education budget. The budget started to increase, and little by little this was covered 100%. This happened in all the municipalities in north of Potosí, and they're starting this now in the department of Tarija. These are all extremely poor areas of Bolivia. Now it is public policies of these municipalities. The municipalities did not take the risk. They accompanied an NGO, and then they assumed they took over. The other alternative is the public administration at a local level. When this local administration decides to innovate, do something new, this happens at the highest level of the local administration, where they take the decision of improving something, whether it is the health indicators, the mother-child health, the education indicators, and this administration at the highest level creates a group. It's not the whole administration working on this, because most of the staff needs to keep carrying on the traditional activities they do, but there is a group that focuses on this. This group is the universities and social society, civil society, called to help us rethink how to change this situation, how to change the death of children, the problems with diabetic feet, the school attendance rates, and so on. The most relevant example we have in the region is an example that we find in Sobral, which is the second most important town in the state of Ceará in Brazil. This is the northeast, the poorest area, which Jorge Amado writes about quite frequently. It's a very northern part of the country. The mayor, in his campaign, he promises the community to reduce the indexes of the rates of child mother death, which are higher than the national average and the state average. He creates this commission where he gets a gynecologist, a group of nurses, some key professionals, people from the health team of the childcare, people from civil society, very respected doctors and universities, so that they think how they can solve this problem. And apart from that, well, all the other health workers continue with the typical services. They carry out verbal autopsies, something that was started in Great Britain several years ago, and they asked the family which were the circumstances that were taking place at that death. And they find out that in most cases this child death is not related to health issues. Usually these deaths are not related to issues that can be improved through health issues. Very often is related to economic issues, mothers who cannot rest because they have to look after other children, mothers who cannot take their child to the hospital when he's dehydrating because they have to look after other child. They use the system of the social mothers, and this has allowed the mother and child mortality to be below the state average. This has been adapted to Ceará, and the Ministry of Education has adapted this as the model of mother-child care for all the northeast of the country. This is a way in which we can actually innovate in the public sector. But the mayor, when he left, he left the program, and he made sure that the civil servants were not accused of misuse of the funds. There's always, well, we are not denying that there might be some corruption issues here, but it was essential that this program was continued after the mayor left. What's very important is that we have to break any restrictions in the public sector. We must make sure that the new administrations do not reject the previous programs. We must make sure that this is kept and new things are innovated. We must make sure that people are not sent to prison for trying to innovate. We believe firmly, and I invite the 3 continents that are represented here. I would like to invite these continents, these people, to accompany civil society. The public organizations, public administrations must accompany the universities, the civil society, the people, the organizations from the community, in order to build the new alternatives to be more efficient and effective in providing these services. This is a win-win situation, and this way the public sector does not to invest its own funds in this innovation process. I know that Valencia has received an award for social innovation. From this award, we must make sure that we can apply, implement all these innovative ideas in Valencia, in Alicante, in all the other cities, and we must move forward with the public policies, and we can even make them national public policies. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I hope I have given you some ideas that are useful for you, and especially ideas in order to debate and to continue building and developing innovation. Thank you very much. Please stay with me because I don't know if you have any questions. Are there any questions? We have time for one question. There are no cards ready, no questions ready. Well, I'll ask you a very quick question. You have mentioned that there is a period of at least 5 years so that a project is feasible with administration. Isn't 5 years a very long period of time? Isn't there a high rate of failure after these 5 years? This is not a magic number. Not all projects need 5 years. Some are consolidated in shorter periods of time, and other projects need many more years to consolidate. The ones we analyze and we consider consolidated enough, and the ones that we considered were sustainable from a political and economic point of view, which was a precondition, all these projects have been maintained. Only 2 projects have not succeeded due to conflicts in the team of the people who were a part of these productive organizations. All the programs from youth, social responsibility, education, health, and so on, all these projects are successful right now. Some of them have become a program, a public policy program, but they have all succeeded. Less than 5 years, I think it's a small miracle for a project to consolidate in less than 5 years, because the process of trial and error is very difficult to achieve in less than 5 years. This is what we have seen through our experience. Thank you very much, María Luisa. Thanks for coming, and a big round of applause for you. I'll be here these 2 days. If you want to speak to me, ask me any questions, I'll be here for you at your disposal. Thank you very much.